How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.
Match 42. Then, as the Royal Rumble of the IPL is upon us, Royal Challengers Bengaluru back at the Chinnaswamy, Rajasthan Royals already in must-win territory. So, we build up to that game on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout. Royalty on the couch in the form of Ambati Rayudu and Aaron Finch. Gentlemen, good evening.
Good evening.
How was your first game out in the open at Hyderabad, Aaron?
It was a bit of a fizzer, wasn't it? It was. It looked as though it was going to be game over after the first 3 overs when Sunrisers went 3 down. But overall, they clawed back and Mumbai just too good in the end.
Rayudu, we are due a close game, don't you think, in the tournament?
Yeah, I think tonight might be a close game.
Because of Rajasthan Royals?
Yeah, but definitely tomorrow is going to be very close because both of them are playing badly.
On that note, might I introduce my dear friend and colleague Dustin Silgardo? You've been with Rayudu, I think, before, haven't you?
No.
Oh.
Actually, first show with Rayudu.
First show with Rayudu and first show with Finch.
Yeah.
Dustin will double up among many things that he does and also fill the big shoes of Matt Roller and has plenty of interesting conversations to have with us. So, Rayudu, you've not come with your notes today or your laptop today.
I mean, it's RCB, so I don't really need
Oh
to think
yes, everything is up there. Right, I can tell you that for the 4th home game running,
Lost the toss.
they've lost the toss. Patidar cannot win a toss at home. RCB so far cannot win at home. And once again, they have what looks like a very, very challenging task of having to bat first. Rayudu, how does that already stack up with what I'm sure is playing on their mind, that they're not picking up points at the Chinnaswamy?
I think they need to bat a little more sensibly, and someone like Virat Kohli should play an anchor role, especially on that pitch where the ball's just holding a little bit and also there's spongy bounce. I think he's going to be a key player, and all others can play with the same intent that they have shown in the tournament.
It's so strange, isn't it, Finchy? For years we were going hard on Kohli not keeping up with the pace of the T20 game, and he needs to sort of bat at a 150, 160 strike rate. And now, this season we're saying, right, Kohli, time to drop anchor again. Time to control the innings.
Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for in this game. I never felt as a player that there was anything that Virat needed to do differently to be successful or help his team be successful. What we've seen this season, though, is probably a lack of batsmanship throughout. We've seen people just want to continue to almost target that 220, 230 score, and even if they're in a little bit of trouble, just continue to blast away and go hard. And overall, it's just not a sustainable model when the wickets have been slightly different to what they were last year, which were just batting paradises.
I want to spend a little more time perhaps on just how home advantage has evaporated. And that is a fact in this year's tournament, isn't it, Dustin?
Yeah, I think there are only 3 teams that have a better than 50% home record. In RCB's case, there's actually been 3 very different pitches at the Chinnaswamy. The first one against GT, the ball was kind of swinging around, Siraj got wickets. And then, yeah, I mean, the stats are up there. You've got only Gujarat, Delhi and Mumbai actually having a better than 50%.
Just point out Delhi, you're including a couple of Isaac games in that as well at Visakhapatnam. Bengaluru aren't even on that in terms of percentage because they're 3 out of 3 losses.
Yeah, and as I said, they've had the 3 games. The second game, the ball was gripping where Delhi spinners took wickets. And then the last game, there was actually a lot of extra bounce. I think Hawkeye showed about 4 centimeters on average extra bounce, and Jansen was really hard to play. So batting first on wickets where you don't know what to predict isn't easy. But I think as Rayudu and Finch are saying that maybe it's just about batting more sensibly at home.
I think we'll have a broader discussion of why it's plaguing more teams. But just quickly on the Chinnaswamy itself, that bounce you said is 4 centimeters more.
No, well, that was the game where there was rain just before the game. So I'm guessing
It was under covers for a couple of days, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you can understand there being a bit more tackiness of the surface. The new ball in particular grips and bounces a bit. Us opening batters had it so hard for a long time.
Yeah, hardest place to bat is at the top, isn't it, Rayudu? Yeah. I wonder why I'm sure there are fans thinking, oh, but Chinnaswamy is supposed to be high scoring and conducive to run scoring, and we've got a good batting lineup that's winning away. Why is it not?
I think a few years ago they have relayed the pitch and also the ground. If you look at that, they put a lot of sand for the drainage. The earlier Chinnaswamy had a brilliant wicket to bat on. It was a black soil kind of a wicket where the ball really came on. Initially it used to swing for an over or two, but it was very, very good for batting. But right now you can see a little bit of help for the bowlers and also the spinners. If you look at that, ball's gripping and turning, and it's it's not quite strange. We have played on wickets like that at Chinnaswamy.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think when you've got Josh Hazlewood and Boovi in your side as well, that plays to your advantage. They've just unluckily lost 4 tosses in a row where they've had to bat first, and particularly history suggests that you have to go harder at Chinnaswamy. So maybe that's putting them under pressure because they're going a bit harder, trying to get that 200 plus score, but the surfaces haven't dictated that.
Yeah, and also I don't think it's the home conditions as such, because I think it's the toss. Some venues are like, you win the toss, you win the game. Especially it happened in 2022 in Bombay. If you're losing the toss and batting first, the wickets were slightly tacky, and all the teams that were bowling first have won most of the time. So I think that's the kind of a pattern that we are seeing at this one.
Was that the season when Shreyas got to the toss and said we're going to bowl first because it's a swimming pool later on? Was that when they played at Brabham? And
Yeah. 2022.
It was just ridiculous. You couldn't defend a total.
Yeah, I believe average score this year the Chinnaswamy is about 169. Last year it was 190 still. Rahul Dravid, the Rajasthan Royals head coach, has said something quite interesting. He's saying you can expect home advantage to not be as significant at the start of a new cycle after a big auction, because many of the players have not played at home. How much of a factor is that, do you think?
I'm sure they have pre-seasons for a month. So I think that is enough time for someone to get adapted to a certain condition. So, I mean, that is Rahul Dravid, he knows what he's talking. But generally when you have a pre-season for a month, you get used to your home conditions.
I mean, even if you don't have a pre-season for a month, you're backing that the players that you've bought at the auction can adapt to different conditions. You're not just buying one-dimensional players. In some cases, there's players who are quite one-dimensional, but the way that they go about it with the bat. But overall, you want a balanced squad that you can mix and match how you select your playing 11.
And to be honest, RCB actually do have a well-balanced squad. I think it may be just miscalculating what they need in the first innings. The last game is a perfect example, because actually when they bowled, Hazlewood was about as hard to play as anybody against Punjab, and he actually kind of kept them in the game even with such a low total. If they had even maybe 20 more, even in a 14-over game, it could have been close.
Yeah, I mean, they went bust there. They had to use an impact sub in a 13-over game, which is not a batting first impact sub, which tells you all you need to know about it. But if we break down their numbers as well, as to what degree Bangalore's batters have struggled at the Chinnaswamy this season, and they've been so good away, especially even in the reverse fixture. You saw how controlled they are in chases. They were outstanding batting first at the Wankhede, as well as I think it was at the Chepauk where they also batted first. But just to break it down, they're averaging nearly 50 away from home, and that drops to 16 at the Chinnaswamy. Strike rate drops, lots of wickets, barely anyone going past 50. What is your advice to the kind of batters that they have? Is it simply Kohli, you go in third gear, or is there more when there's Patidar and Padikkal and Phil Salt?
I think in a batting partnership at Chinnaswamy this year, I feel one batter has to take the onus on himself to at least play 14-15 overs, and the other guy can go hard. Both of them going hard, I don't think augurs really well, at the current situation that they are in.
Well, especially someone like Phil Salt, if you ask him to go in second gear, he can start to get a little bit stuck. So you need him to be the explosive one. Virat, I think the power play, you can still be quite aggressive, but once you get outside the power play, you can look to anchor the innings a little bit more. And when I say anchor, that doesn't mean you drop your strike rate to 100 through that period and genuinely just look for singles. We were really critical of KKR the other night that they didn't fire a shot through the middle overs chasing 200. So it's still looking for your boundary option, but maybe just lowering the risk slightly for one batter, whoever that might be, whether it's Virat Kohli, whether it's Devdutt Padikkal, who can play that role really well, and then let the other explosive players play around and make sure that you've got somebody there who's in towards the back end.
Yeah, because you remember the game that they played against MI at Wankhede. The pitch was pretty similar. It was slow, but Virat played that kind of an innings where he just took a little bit of time. It was not like strike rate was less or anything, but he just controlled the middle part of the innings.
Yeah, I'll quickly just show you what Rajat Patidar has also had to say about what he expects from his batters. And he's actually urged his side, the RCB captain, to focus on a little bit of shot selection. The wickets are two-paced, bounce is varying. The point that Ambati has made here, that Rayudu has made here, I think the bowlers are getting a lot of help, the way their ball is dipping, the way they're getting bounced. So I think the more we focus on hitting behind square, the better it will be.
So straight away, there's an alarm bell there for me. They said that there's 3 very different surfaces in 3 games, and then you're asking your batters to hit in one area of the ground. That to me, that's not using your cricket IQ. That's not summing up the conditions really quick. Some players do it better than others. Some do it quicker than others. So if now they're going into the game with a preconceived idea, right? The captain wants us to hit behind the wicket, and it's a slow wicket. It's dry. You're in real trouble. So you have to sum it up for yourself. Different players have different strengths. Some players love hitting down the ground and they can do it from length. Other guys need to use the pace. So yeah, that's an unusual comment for me.
I wonder if it's a response to the kind of dismissals they've had. A lot of batters trying to go over, long off, long on are getting caught. And maybe that was Patidar's instinctive reaction. But this was said, of course, in the build-up to this game.
Maybe I think he was referring to using the pace more than trying to force the pace. Might be his ideology behind that statement. Maybe the statement didn't come out absolutely right. I think the intention behind it might be to use the pace a lot more.
When you think of especially the overseas batters, they have Salt, Livingston, David. Are these the kind of players who play kind of the
Might be Shepherd today and not Livingston, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, don't bat Tim David at number 8.
Yeah.
Twice this season he's batted at number 8, and he's got so much power. He can win you a game from any position. He's like what Kieran Pollard was in his prime. He's got that ability to take it away from you in a couple of balls. And people keep saying they're protecting him against spin. But if he gets in against spin, he can dominate that as well. So they just need to simplify their method a bit.
To pick up on that point, and we look at the RCB team, which can confirm that no changes from the side that was quite relieved to get the result over the Punjab Kings after going down to them at home in the previous game. Perhaps the inclusion of Romario Shepherd Finchy will allow for Tim David to anyway come in a position, at least a position higher, given Livingston is someone that you think needs to bat top 5. But Shepherd can play what is the real finisher's role at 8-9, and David can come in higher?
Yeah, maybe he can come in at number 6 and Jitesh goes up to number 5, who can be dominant against spin as well. So for me, I think that at times, when you've got a so-called finisher in your side, teams can get worried about exposing them early because then they mightn't have anything right at the back end. But think of it the other way. Think of when you've got an in batter and somebody is destructive of that calibre. They can do enormous damage in a 5 or 6 over period. Don't just limit them to 8, 10, 12 balls.
Okay, well, I would be doing the Rajasthan Royals fans a disservice if we're only discussing RCB over here. But quite frankly, the Rajasthan Royals fans themselves would be perplexed as to where they find themselves in this game. Lots of changes from one game to the next. Let's have a look at what's today. From Rian Parag's side, the continued absence of Sanju Samson. We can almost be sure to expect Vaibhav Suryavanshi in the second innings. But Fazal Farooqi replaces Mahesh Theekshana. I thought Simon Catt said at the pitch report that it's drier today, and whether they would have considered Theekshana, even though he's not been in good form. What do you make of that change?
I think Theekshana should have played on this pitch, especially because he can bowl good Yorkers, or also his off spin tends to grip in the pitch. Also his carom ball tends to grip in the pitch. Maybe Fazal Farooqi is a good swing bowler. I don't think he's going to extract much out of the pitch, but if there is some swing in the air, that is when he is really effective. That's because maybe they are losing a few games. They felt the urge to make a change. I didn't think it was necessary.
There is a lot that's not right about Royals this season, and we have to focus on, I guess, 2 of their major Indian players retained before the auction. Big things expected out of both Yashasvi Jaiswal and Rian Parag. Jaiswal's an even more confusing one. Just have that chat. I know he's going to bat second innings, but there are a couple of chases that have gone wrong for the Royals. They know that. Super over against Delhi Capitals, bottling it against Lucknow Super Giants. And we've discussed this before, but let's get Rayudu and Finchy to weigh in too on Jaiswal's slowdown outside the power play. He's getting scores, and we'll bring up the numbers in just a second, but what that tells you about batter who does have a fairly high attacking intent percentage. Those are the numbers. Dot ball percentage is, I think you would say, Rayudu, on the higher side at nearly 48%. He still hits boundaries, but the strike rate dips after the first 6.
I mean, generally it does dip when the power play ends, but I mean, he will improve. He has to hit a lot more force along the ground, access a lot more gaps. That is where me and Finchy also discussed on another show about batsmanship and how to go about things in that middle phase. And I feel these guys need experience to really handle and tackle T20 cricket in the middle overs. It is not that easy. That's something. It's very different to bat in a power play, to batting in the middle, to batting in the death. So I think he needs to adapt and show more batsmanship, like we have seen Sai Sudarshan do it and Shubman Gill do it for GT.
Do you see anything in that stat there about the inability to hit takedown spin for a left-hander? A lot of teams have been able to keep Jaiswal quiet by just bowling even a wrist spinner at times.
Yeah, what generally goes hand in hand with a strike rate dropping like that is losing wickets around you. And you mentioned Sai Sudarshan. He's had the stability of Butler and Shubman Gill, who they've got over 70% of the runs for their team. So it feels as though he's never under any pressure to have to score or have to conserve his wicket. He can just keep playing the game that he wants to play. Whereas with Jaiswal, it's totally different. They're losing wickets around him. So then he almost feels like he has to be the man to bat a little bit deeper. So maybe he is showing batsmanship in that middle phase, but the tactic against spin, he can be so damaging against it, and particularly over the leg side. That surprised me when I saw that stat.
It's strange though. I mean, his numbers there are 55 average, 450s in 5 games.
And I thought he played the last game pretty well. He got them down to about 20 to win of 3. I don't think you can then blame him for then the finishers not taking them over the line. I know he got out in, the 18th over, but I mean, you can't really blame him for the last loss.
I mean, there are so many people that you can point the blame to, but I know, I think at the time, I forget who was on our panel that day, said that it's the kind of surface that you've got to kill the game and finish it as a set batter in the 17th over. It was always going to be harder. They've let games just drift. And I'm just trying to think on that, whether it was a no-brainer to chase, because they would have some scars of 2 chases gone wrong, but clearly still the right way to go at the toss from Rian?
Of course it's the right way, because you really play with the conditions in front of you, and that's the right thing to do. But they just need to find a way to chase down those targets, and they need to find a method as a team, as a batting unit. It is very, very important. Some teams are really comfortable taking it to the end. Some teams want to finish it early. So it depends on what type of batters you have in your batting lineup. Are they comfortable just coming in and hitting the ball, or do they take a little bit of time? If they are taking a little bit of time, then it's better to finish it slightly earlier.
Do you think this team, and we'll talk about the other big player here, captain now in Samson's absence, Rian Parag, do you think that even though we're into the 9th game, I think, for RR this season, that they are still trying to find their ideal batting order or ideal entry point? There's a lot of guys that come in at different times in different games.
Yeah, and that generally suggests a confusion in the backroom staff and a breakdown with the captain as well. Not ideal when Sanju hasn't been there every game, so then you can really plan it. But the alarming thing for me is when one game Nitish Rana comes in at 3, does well, and he's batting at 5 or 6 the next game, and Rian Parag's batting at 3. Both of their numbers at number 3 for Rana, number 4 for Parag are so much better. So I'd just like to see them be consistent with the way that they go about it. You think back to the great Chennai sides that they've had, consistency throughout. Players know their role. They know what's expected of them every time. Mumbai are the same. And, I mean, international teams are the same too. You don't have to shake things up for the sake of it. Just do the basics well.
Exactly. I mean, it is like putting a doubt in a batter, saying that you can't really play well against an off spinner or a leg spinner. But the management wants you to think the opposite, saying that the other guy can be better than you at that point in time. I mean, but it generally doesn't work.
Jurel is the other guy. I think the first game of the season he got 70, batting at number 4, early entry point, and then I think the next game or a couple of games later he was batting behind Hasaranga suddenly at number 6.
I think they're trying to do God's work for God himself. Just leave the players in the positions that they are, and they will decide on how they are going to play.
There has to be some.
That'll be clipped up. That will absolutely be clipped up. That's great.
I don't rule out a supernatural explanation to this, because we tried to understand their pattern, and first we thought it was a commitment to the left-right hander, which has always proven to be valuable many times in T20 cricket, but last game it wasn't even that. You know, Jaiswal was batting, I think, with Rana, and there are times that they've sent Jurel to bat with Parag. So I don't know if they are magnifying the game to such a point where they're just, it's only about who they're expecting to bowl, what those numbers are at that particular situation. From what you know of the franchise, I know they're very analytical, but are they almost analytical, complicating things for their own good?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you also want some instinct and a gut feel to be relevant and prevalent. I mean, in a game in cricket. So I don't I don't know why they are doing it, to be very, very honest. And Edmire not coming up the order is something that is quite strange, because he's the only guy who has the experience to control the innings through the middle. I mean, everybody else can play around him. It doesn't matter if there are two
I'm just trying to think of how much of this is also down to, I know Sanju's been in a couple of games as captain. It made a difference when he came on. I think after the 2 losses that Parag had to captain, where Sanju was only a batting impact sub, it seemed like a much sharper RR team when he was in the field. Now he's been out because of injury. And whether Parag, the captain, after the season he had last year, we're expecting big things from him. Whether the captaincy call, we just assumed that, okay, fine, why not? Riyan Parag is captain. But is that perhaps also something which has burdened him as a player and not seeing his best returns as a batter?
It takes a lot more of your time and energy to be captain of a team, regardless of whether it's an international or domestic team. The amount of meetings that you have to even pick a team, that's not an easy process. It generally takes a couple of hours when you're sitting down with the analysts and everyone and you're going through numbers and the opposition. So it's just small layers like that you keep adding on top of a player who it will have expectations on himself, but also more information is known about him now as well. It's not, he's a few years into his career now, so maybe it's an unnecessary burden, just let the kid play, but someone's got to do it.
He's captained a lot, so he understands that. But one thing that I really feel the teams are doing, the franchises are doing right now at the moment, is because they have all the analytics and a good backroom staff to decide on things. They think the captain's role is minimized, or he doesn't have much of a much of a say, or no, not a say, but
he's just there to pull the strings.
Yeah, he's just there to pull the strings. But I don't think it's like that. As a captain on the ground, it takes a lot of toll on your batting as well.
Yeah, it does. And I think the one thing that has changed in the game in the last couple of years with the impact sub coming in is that now that the creativity of the captain has probably been diminished a little bit, because you don't have many holes in teams anymore. So in the past, you generally had to decide whether you wanted 7 batters or 5 bowlers. Unless you had a great all-rounder, you couldn't have both. So you had to navigate your way around that as a captain. And if you had 4 bowlers, you had to try and pick apart the opposition and place maybe 2 all-rounders that are bowling it over here and there and getting them out. Whereas that doesn't happen anymore. You've got all bases covered. So that's when the analytics start coming into it more, and they start to try and have more of a say out on the field.
Funny enough though, Matt Rollers, I'm glad he's not here for an RR game, Dustin, because he has been pulling his hair out saying that RR are the team that frustrate me the most, because in the impact sub era, you either need to have an extra bowling option or an extra batting option. That's just the simple way. And we look at that RR team one more time. They made another change today, but in almost every game, their batting, no matter what, will still end at number 6. I mean, Hasaranga at a 7 in the IPL, with due respect.
But that's because they don't have all-rounders. I mean, Hasaranga is their only all-rounder really. And that's been the problem in the last cycle as well, where Jason Holder was their only all-rounder. So I think RR seem to believe that because you have an impact sub, you don't need all-rounders. But in fact, the teams that do really well have all-rounders and then they have an impact sub. So they have 6 bowlers, 8 batters.
I think now with Suryavanshi coming in, then that gives you a little more.
So the bowling 11 and the batting 11 are always the same.
But you also, that's the flip side to it, that you'll always have exactly 5 bowlers. So even if someone's having an off day, you're hoping for one of Nitish Rana or Parag himself to come in.
But you can't do anything about that, because then you would have only batting till 6 even with the impact.
Right. So I mean, he goes back basically that you've not given yourself enough options in the squad and the inception at the auction.
Absolutely. I mean,
that's a fact.
when you have seen teams doing well in the IPL over the years, those are the teams who had the best all-rounders. And even today, with the impact sub, you still need all-rounders in your side.
They just balance your team out, because then you can play. Oh, I mean, you look, Sunny Narayan's opening the batting, I understand that. But the other night, KKR had batting down to number 9.
Yes.
they still didn't get the job done, but they still had batting options and like genuine batters at number 9. So that's just a stark contrast between philosophies, I guess, with different franchises.
Last point on this, and we'll move on and talk about the power play in a second, is for a young guy like Parag to assert himself as captain, is it also a challenge when you have big personalities in the dugout? I mean, this is the great Rahul Dravid, Kumar Sangakkara, and here he is first as stand-in captain, now as captain, and you tend to think, surely these guys know better. What would be your advice to a young captain like him? Because you know he's a quality player. It seems like we're missing both the captain and the player right now though, and the Royals need things to fire today, no later.
Yeah, I think it is quite tough when you have such legends in your dugout, and most of the times they would say things to you rather than ask things from you. So they would say, you know, I think this might work, or I think this is the way we can do it, and then ask him, what do you think? So
just a loaded, a loaded statement.
And good luck then saying, no, that doesn't make any sense to me.
So I think it is quite a challenge, but I mean, as a captain, you would know when to put your foot down and really assert yourself in a conversation.
That's done in all the planning and preparation that you do going into each game. You go through different scenarios and you try and think of every possible scenario that could happen in the game. Of course, if somebody gets injured, that throws your plans out the window. But you'll have an idea. So for us as an Australian team, we would always plan, well, what if Mitchell Starc goes around the park first over? How do we then navigate the power play? When do we get him back in? And these are all just hypotheticals that you're discussing. What if Josh Hazlewood has a bad day? What if Adam Zampa, who we're banking to bowl through the middle, has a bad day? How can we still get our 20 overs out? So they're just hypothetical conversations that you're having out loud, so that when a situation comes up on ground, you're generally on the same page with what the coaching staff are thinking because you've talked about it.
You've told me many times already that how valuable it was to have other experienced players or senior players, and I wonder if that's also something missing in this team. You don't have any other international captain. There's no Joss Butler, there's no R. Ashwin, Trent Bolt, guys who were experienced in their last season, and you'll have to make with this, right?
It makes a huge difference. I mean, if you look at it, because generally those suggestions, those gut feels, make a huge difference
They
in a
can be
game.
validated and bounced off a team.
Yeah, of course.
Sure. All right, it's time to break down tactical matchups in the first 6. Maruti Suzuki Arena presents Powerplay Conversations. RCB batting first. This hasn't gone well so far. So let's just try and see how RR approached this. Firstly, Farooqi is in for Tikshana, so I wonder what that does for how Riyan Parag chooses to manage his bowlers in the first 6. Finchy?
Well, you'd think that Farooqi has to take the new ball then. Jofra Archer's been good with the brand new ball. Sandeep Sharma's the other option, who's been pushed a little bit deeper than what he has in the past. So I expect Farooqi to take the new ball and try and challenge Kohli, swinging it back in particular.
Batters?
Yeah, I think the battle, I think it's going to be between Archer and Salt. Yeah, I think that's a big battle because if...
That'll be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, whoever gets on top in that battle will have a big say in this game.
I mean, just break the difference in the two seems quite significant, isn't it, Dustin? Archer versus the rest of the Rajasthan bowling. They're almost heavily reliant on Archer. Tends to make you wonder whether they'll bowl him 3 at the top, 2 at the top, save him. Not quite sure what to do.
Yeah, but that was always the way RR set up. I mean, they spent about 66% of their auction purse on the top 6. So they were never going to have the best bowling attack. They chose to do that. The idea was that, okay, our batting is going to be so strong, anything, I think RR should be chasing anything below 200. But they failed in 2 chases of less than 190. So, because when you have that much investment in the batting, I don't think you can turn to the bowlers and say, you need to get a side out for 170.
There's a lovely finality to your assessment of it. Like, there's no hope now.
No.
That's done. No, I like it. I like it.
No, I think the batting is really strong. Listen, I picked RR as a top 4 team at the beginning of the tournament because I thought the batting was that good. But it's just that the batting, I think, is where you've got to look at.
See, I don't remember it. I don't know why you're reminding me and everybody else that you picked them in your top 4. But yeah, it's a tricky one to see how Parag manages an informed Jofra Archer. And we saw quite a contest between these two at Jaipur. Salt, I think the first time Archer had ever bowled to Salt. There was swinging and missing. There's an edge. There was, in the end, I think it went for 21 of 10. But I'll give you the advantage of watching one ball. And if that tells you anything about the surface, which is supposedly drier.
That flew through.
Yeah, that flew through, but I think it was slightly spongy as well. I don't think...
I don't think that was spongy.
No,
how-
Bangalore generally,
It
I
seemed to
mean,
hurry the keeper, didn't it?
Yeah,
No,
how far the keeper had to go. That's hit his gloves hard, fully outstretched. But there was movement there.
I think Archer's given an expression which also says, okay.
yeah, there's enough in this pitch.
Yeah. And keeping that in mind, I wonder what that makes you feel about the first inning score. ESPN Cricket was forecast as 209. That in mind, let's get first innings predictions. Rayudu.
I think 190.
Okay. Dustin?
I'll say 204.
Finchy.
The average this year is 169.
That's right, at the Chinnaswamy.
170.
Good man. Keeping it simple, low bowling it. Thank you very much to Aaron Finch, Ambati Rayudu, as well as Dustin Silgardo. We pick up the chat at the end of RCB's innings, but they still want to feel that taste of success at the Chinnaswamy, and RR need to win. Should be a fascinating first innings. Join us at the end of it on Maruti Suzuki Arena presents ESPN Cricket for Timeout.
How do I do it all? The Brezza gives me the power.